So now with people with some board presence, the game kind of takes a different, a little bit more information going into the chit pull selection. We also have to add up, and now this is where I kind of wanted to do the, hey, if you're the first in Barbarians, if you're the last in Barbarians, you should get the pick there. And you know what? I think I'm going to do that. This is, again, against the rules. But it makes life easier because otherwise I have to add these two and keep a running total. And that's technically difficult for me. So I'm going to cheat again. So in this case, and I think I'll get approximately the right balance out of it in terms of the game balance of victory positioning versus what your draws are. Without hitting the person who's in the lead quite as hard perhaps as he would be in the historical game. So, or in the game as written. So we're going to do this just because it's easier. So I checked the Barbarian victory points, and the lowest points is this guy here. Now he gets Barbarian number 3, which is the Grammaticus. They're on the board with a couple pieces. He'll get an additional piece if he draws them. But they still don't seem like a terribly good choice. So I'm going to hand these to someone else. Now, what I might want to do is hand them to the next player in line. Or I might say they're such a hosed position, and I think they are out of all of them, that I want to hand it to the guy who's doing the best, who happens to be blue. Blue is doing the best in both. I'm not going to just go for who's doing the best in Barbarians, although that's what the case is. So he's going to get that one. The next draw, I'll go to the green player, who gets number 4. Number 4 is not a bad choice. I get 5 in Ratia. Oh, that allows me to bone these Gauls here completely. They'll have nowhere they can retreat to. How is my board position? That's one question. I might want to go earlier in the turn if I'm strong on the board. I don't look like I'm terribly strong on the board. It's kind of hard to tell. I have this. I see no other green anywhere. Maybe there should be. Pontus. Yeah, no, that's this guy. It's just the Parthians. Yeah. I think I'm okay pulling this one. If I can find the chit I just drew. I wonder where I left it. Here it is. So I'm going to take this because I don't think it's a terrible choice for me. There are worse choices. Oh, wait, no. Oh, it's back here. Yeah, I think that's a pretty nice place. It gets me some points for Italy that maybe I can't get otherwise easily. We'll go with that. Yellow's the next pick. Yellow gets number 1. Now, if yellow was on the board strong, they would want this. Are they? Well, they've got stuff down here. It's the Barbarians that are important, so it's here, here, here. That's a little bit. In a strong position here, I think I'm going to sit on 1 as well, which is going to be the Chatty, who start up here. That helps me a little bit. I can expand maybe into Italy, but likely over here. It's not a really valuable place, but I don't know what's left. I do know that he got probably the weakest of the choices, whatever that may be. But I'm not sure what the weakest is. The Celts look pretty weak too. And that gives me the last choice, which is blue, gets to peek at number 2 here and hand it over to red. Now number 2 is not very good either. It's Sarmatia. So, you know, none of them look tremendous. And now we'll go to these chits. And again, I feel like this game has enough flaws both mechanically as well as in terms of not being a terribly accurate historical model, that I don't feel bad tinkering with it a lot. I think there's a neat design here in some ways, but it's got its problems that I'd like to try to resolve. The biggest one that I haven't figured out how to resolve is that first turn issue. Okay. So what do we got? We got 4. Now this is, who's drawing this? We've gone through all these. We're up on the Romans. Green just drew this. The 4th emperor here is Otho. Well, that's in a pretty boring position. He has no advantages at all. I'm handing this to blue. which means we go to the next person, who is yellow. Yellow is going to draw Emperor 1. Again, if my Romans are in a good position, and they are over here, I was kind of counting these in my barbarian count, and they're not. Well, I'm in a position to sweep into Italy perhaps more easily than otherwise. This one gives me an extra legion and victory points for Tiberius Claudius. Oh, that's just his name, isn't it? Oh, one big thing. Okay, I'm going to keep that. Largely, there isn't a lot of differentiation in the pieces. So there's a lot less of the, oh my God, look, the Huns look like they're going to be potent with their big 10 counters. But, you know, the original history of the world, the Romans were just huge with 25 pieces, whereas some people had like 3. Who's next? That was yellow. Green and yellow have both selected their own, right? No, green gave theirs away. Red. Red gets 5. Emperor 5. Get rid of this. Emperor 5 is going to be Vitellius. He gets an extra legion. There are equally bad things. How's Red's Roman hold? Red's Roman hold is very good. Oh, he doesn't have an option. Somebody handed him something good. Something early. Oh no, that's the barbarians. I don't particularly want to hold this. I'm going to punt this to the last remaining place, which means that whatever this guy picks goes to me, and I might get an early pick. Well, I get a later pick, but I don't think that's going to matter. I get over here Vespasius, who's got a definite better situation. He gets 2 legions instead of the 1 and a +1 attack. But I'm going to lose my control over Rome probably from that. Okay, so that's the starting. Are these smearing? I think these are smearing the ink on the counter because my fingers are not dirty. That's a sign about the components here, if the ink on them is smearing. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're doing here. We've got the first barbarians, who are going to be the chatty, coming in with him. Now, I haven't chosen my card yet, so let me bump off and do that. Pass on a card. I actually have one I could play that's... I have a lot I could play. But I have one that I could play that's kind of harder to choose not to, which is this Numidia. Works out into range, out into era 7, all the way through the game. Gives me a couple of units in Africa. I don't have anything in Africa right now, so I'd score some points off of it. But again, holding your cards makes you look like you're behind in the victory points. Being actually behind in the victory points gives you an advantage, a direct advantage, which is you get earlier picks. Being apparently behind, in the sense that other people might not pay attention to your cards, is also the advantage that I spoke about. But the big one here is I've got an actual advantage there, even if other people aren't taking account of it. Of course, they're going to look and know, hey, you got 2 kingdoms and a tribe each, and you haven't played your tribe. That means you have a late-coming tribe. But they don't know that I could have played it. I don't know how much that matters to them. Anyway, we start with our chatty, and we'll drop them here in Germania Magna. I'll put that down. It's not passed yet, but... And I want to look to see where my victory points are. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get into Hispania without attacking myself. But there are other places I can go. Maybe I want to get into Ratia. Is that where my empire comes? Somebody comes in there, but it's not this guy. So he doesn't know for sure, unless he's the guy who handed it off, which is unlikely, the Marcomanni. He doesn't know for sure whether they're out. It's very likely they are. Do I have a card that gives me a bonus getting in there? I have elite troops, engineering. I could do a disaster. I could get rid of some of those units. Roll a die for each army, fort, and city. Well, that's better at a place where there are forts and stuff that I need to destroy. So I'll hold off. Germania is worth 2 points at this point. Hispania is worth 3. I wish I thought I had a power there and I misjudged. I think I'm just gonna get into Gaul. Gaul's worth 2 points. So see, here's the thing. I can attack this. Oh, those are mine. Screw that, man. I get those points. Awesome. Okay. So I can go into Belgica, Britannia. I'll go out here to Hibernia, where it's even further out. And I'm going to get points for Gaul and Germania. Full points for them. I didn't notice these are mine. Why do I not have a marker for them? Those are the Pannoni. I should have a past barbarian for them in Pannonia. That's what I missed. Okay. So this isn't that bad a deal. And I'm going to score some points for that. I'll step away. No reason to watch the point scoring happening. Except that you'll catch my mistakes. Now things are different. I've scored his barbarians. He's up to, got 17 plus 2. 19 points this turn. I think. A lot of inefficiency here where he has like 2 units in Asia, 2 units in Greece, 2 units in Scythia, but he scored his big points over here by setting up this turn, and the residuals might help eventually. But now we come to the first time we see a Roman coming in for his next turn. Now, my emperor this time gives me an extra legion, which I'm just going to get to score or put on the board. But I also get to build new Romans. And they're going to cost me 2 Roman victory points each to build. And I can also build forts and fortresses for a point each. Now, forts and fortresses are kind of nice. They don't help me as much against Romans, but they may be a wise idea for me to expend some of my victory points to improve my position at this point. Actual legions are kind of expensive, but this is the cheapest point in the game for them. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to spend for a fort here, certainly. That's worth a point. Of course, I'm going to have to make those points up, right? These are... Oh, I have some Romans down in Cappadocia. Wait a minute. I was counting these. I'm perfect. I had 1 unit over here. So my units in Cappadocia probably are worth spending a point for as well to fortify. Although it's easier for other Romans to take that. There aren't a whole lot of Romans around. And that becomes kind of interesting. Now I can also buy myself some Romans. An attack down here might be worthwhile. I think I'm going to buy myself 2 more legions for 4 points, thus reducing my score and looking like less of a threat. Do I have a card I want to play at this point? I'm not that potent, but I get a victory point for each province I take, which might be a reason to spread out into weaker areas, but there aren't a lot of them for me to take. I get 2 free forts. I'm actually going to use this and get my 2 points for forts back. That gives me a little bit more points. I'll throw that away. I don't want to keep a pile. Some people like to keep all the cards you've played out as a reference. I'd rather not do that. So now I have these armies. And what's not so good here is that I've got to cross good terrain to get into Cisalpina, and then I've got a fortress, or a fortification. But we'll take a shot at Cisalpina. There's a lot of points there still. That's a tie, so we re-roll. That's not a tie, so we have knocked red out of there, if I can find red. And that means we keep going into Rome. That's 2 dice, but they have a +1 on their defense. And we lose that battle, so we don't get into Rome. Given my 1 victory point per, I'm going to sleaze into Lusitania and just grab the victory points. I've gotten some here in Cisalpina. I can't buy a fort. This isn't like in History of the World, you can buy things, as you expand. You don't get to do that here. So now I get to score my Roman points. Oh, I could expand out of here, or I could pull this off the map and use it in an attack somewhere else. I think another shot at Rome is worthwhile. Rome's worth a lot of points. Of course, so might this city be that's not fortified. That's worth more points, and it gets me a retreat zone. Let's go there. No. And that's a success for us. I can't loot this city, but I do get to score my points, and I get more points for cities than barbarians do. So I'll score those. And our next player is going to be the second barbarian, who would be the Sarmati, who I don't think exist. Yeah, they do. They're over here. And I'll score these and come back. And those Romans got to a pretty good point there after the counting. Then the Sarmatians was his choice. And they spread out here, got beaten here after already going up here. Total points got me out to about 16. And now I'm going for the second emperor, who is going to be, well, token 2, obviously. Not so obvious. Okay, so the next one is going to be token 4 out here. So we're going to see Otho. Ooh. Otho decides not to play a card. He ends up armoring his position. That means the rest of the Romans are going, because there's 2 more players left to go with Romans. He ends up armoring his position. Both of these are tough terrain to get into. One's got a city in it. He's got 2 units in each. He's pulling in right now 6, 7 points for this. He can't build another city because he hasn't enough city spaces. That's a fair amount of points. It doesn't put him in the lead, but he hasn't spent anything on it, and it feels like a kind of nice situation to be in, rather than trying to expand by spending victory points. He might be able to make more victory points by spending victory points at this point. 2 points each. Could have gone into these 2, and that would only be worth 3 extra victory points and wouldn't really guarantee him anything. Going into Africa, it's only worth 2. Going into Graecia, it's only worth 2. So the cost-benefit analysis says, well, as long as I'm towards the lead, it's probably not worth it. I'll hold off. We'll see what kind of points I can get off my barbarians. I scored a good deal earlier off them, although I'm kind of falling behind some folk now. And I think my barbarians are next with the lousy, whatever these are down here. I can't really read them. Garamantes. They're not going to, in and of themselves, do much for me, but I've got a card. Blue has the next action on the Garamantes. Here they're going to play the Picts, which they could have played earlier. That allows them to spread out into here. I'm putting a barbarian counter here because I think they have both their kingdom markers on the board. I feel like the kingdom is more applicable, but because these might confuse me and I would go looking for them if a barbarian's changing, but it doesn't really make a difference. In conjunction with this, I forced the chatty to withdraw. I now have dominance up here, and that's going to allow me to take over my new thing, and that's these Garmantes. These guys lose them. They're no longer theirs. They're now mine. And if I can gain a territory, I get a point. Now, the most valuable territory to gain is over here in Egypt. That's tough to get. Not a point, but I get to upgrade my Africans from just being a 2-point control in Africa to a 4-point control. However, taking this could get me a pile of points, and, well, I'd have to fight through the fort. That's the problem. Do I feel lucky? Since I played the Picts, I don't have the opportunity to play another card. I don't see a reason to really up my risk. So I'm just going to go for the 1. And we destroy these Marathi, who are red. And that is over here. They came in last turn, but they'll come back up here. So they got another shot at coming in. And now I'll score my blue points. I don't know how many they're going to get, but it's going to be a goodly amount. I have a lot of stuff on the board, so nobody knocked me out early, which is kind of cool. Probably playing things a little too close to the vest with their Romans. Now, let's see. At least we got the points here, and we're in that second place in both of these at this point, which I feel like is a fairly strong place to be. I'm not an obvious leader who people feel they need to hit. Green used their their Romans to advance into Arabia Deserta, and not much more. They spent points on fortifying because I believe fortifying helps position yourself. Now, Green probably should be a little bit worried because their points are not as high as some of the other players. In fact, they're falling quite a bit behind. So maybe they should have spent a bit more, risked a bit more, trying to take something like Egypt, for example, which they could loot for good points, or just take for the 2 victory points to turn off the city. It probably would be worth more to loot it. But my experience with History of the World and likewise and similar games is you start banking a lot of points and people start getting very worried, which is what's really informing what a lot of the players are playing as here. Is that fear of looking powerful. They want to keep their cards in reserve. They don't want to do a lot on the board. Now I'm getting to the next barbarians, which is going to be the Marcomanni, and those are potent because they're going to wipe out these Gauls here, which is pretty potent. And they start out in Ratia with a powerful force. They might be able to do some kind of impressive stuff. Again, though, I don't want to play too many cards on them. Actually, a pretty impressive play. I played the Dalmatians into where the blue had an existence and a fort, and they were just destroyed out of there because they had nowhere they could retreat to. That's why you always want a place to retreat to. I'm leaving them there because they're holding a key location. And then the Marcomanni show up here. They've marched down and wiped yellow out of here with a dice, equal dice. Wiped red out of here. They had to hit both the regular unit and the fort. Now I can loot this. Boom. That gets me 2 dice because it's Rome. So I get 12 victory points on green. And this is the kind of thing you can do if you're behind. Is you can take some shots. I'm going to go for this for absolute control over there. That's difficult terrain, so the defender gets an extra die. I lose 1, but I'm going to keep going there because I think that's my most valuable expansion. And I've got nothing really free to tie. The Romans could withdraw from here. But with the good terrain, they're going to stay. And they're knocked out of there. The red faction's almost completely destroyed. Now, as long as he has victory points, he can spend them and try to recover his functionality. And at this point in the game, you certainly want to do that. But wow, we've just seen the Marcomanni and Dalmatians grab all of Italy. Sack Rome. Pretty harsh, given that this is the era of... Vespasian. Rebels you shouldn't be seeing this kind of attack this early or this late. The Romans pretty much should be a dominating faction, but they haven't created the kind of perimeter and power that they did historically in the game. All right, let's score this. This is going to be a big turn for green overall. Question in my mind, I've got Vespasian, who's pretty damn powerful here. He gets an extra 2 legions for free. He gets +1 to his attack. Is this the time to break out? You know, I'm falling behind, I feel. My barbarians are in the worst place. My Romans, probably I'll end up passing green, but not by much. Not, you know, in the position I'm in. Yeah. Yellow and blue are still above green. So I'm not really worried about trying to hit green for the horrible things they've done. But on the other hand, it would be nice to get into Rome and to establish myself big. I could probably get second pick on the Roman chits after green, even while grabbing some decent stuff. So... Rome itself is not worth as much right now. You got to spend a turn to recover the capital once you own it. So that's kind of one of the issues here. But the other is, how many victory points do I want to spend? Because I don't want to spend them unless I'm throwing one of my good cards. And I have some. That's not it. I have elite troops, which would give me more dice for attacking. I have Wrath of God, which gives me more dice. And I can use that for Romans too, I believe. However, that's better for fighting against fortresses, I suppose. Here I'd get another +1. I already have one. That would make me pretty damn indestructible. I think I want to hold off, though. Again, because I can generate a whole bunch of points later in the game. And if I'm kind of keeping my score low, I think that's for the best. So I'll just take my 2 freebies. Even though I've got a good leader, I'm going to count on it. If I'm low, I'll get another good leader for whom I can spend those points. I'm going to go into Syria, where I get 2 dice against his 1. This is the guy I most want to hit in a decent location. And I'm at +1, and that's fairly easy. Now I might have wanted to buy some troops anyway, just to take these things. So these are equivalent. I could sail over to Rome, try to set myself up there, but I'll go. Is there anywhere just open that's worthwhile? Probably not. The world's pretty cluttered. It fills up pretty fast. Certainly don't want to go into Egypt. Yeah, we'll go into Cappadocia. This gives them a +1 as well. Okay, so we lost there. And then for points, we're just going to get 2 for the city, plus Asia, and Arabia is 3 more. It looks like just 5 points. I don't get a victory point bonus for Vespasian. I feel like I kind of misused him and should have thrown more points in to attack. More stuff. Grabbed more. I could still keep myself low and go early. Get a double turn. Such is life. No. I think that's everyone. The Celts aren't on the board. 5 is a Roman there. So we clean up and hit another turn. I do the chip picks offline, but just because it's easier. And you've seen some of the kind of thinking that takes place in that. But one of the things that I haven't really mentioned is I've been hoarding these cards as if it's history of the world. With the, yeah, you know, I want to use these on my later things where I get more points. But it's important. Your Romans are your more important factions to run with. So if you've got something that allows you to fortify, clearly you want to do that with Romans. I think it's limited only to Romans in most cases, if not all. But even if you have military advance cards, you probably want to use them for the Romans for the most part. For the simple reason that your Romans are going to score you points every turn. Your barbarians may. They may stick around and stay yours. But as we saw with these guys, they swing sides. They can shift if they're further up on here. So we've got the Sarmati possibly showing up again. We've got some others. I got to keep in mind the fact that you can reposition too. You can suck some of them off the board as long as you leave one there to expand from, and give up territory that isn't really useful to your barbarian kingdom territories. That's something to think about. See if I can quickly reconstruct the barbarian and Roman picks. Remember, I'm cheating with the barbarian and Romans in the sense that I'm not playing by the rules. I've devised my own little rule that I think is easier to play with and just as good or better. Red and blue both got 1 and 2. And they both have a position with barbarians. They both have a position on the board with barbarians that's pretty good, so they grabbed them. Our next were yellow and green, and I don't recall. Barbarian 6 or 3 was these, and 2 or 5 is the Celti. I think yellow passed their choice because I can't imagine them having taken the one they did, and then ended up with one that really isn't any better. After seeing 2 of them fall, they probably had pretty good reason to believe that some fairly good that the best ones had gone, actually. Now, which are the best isn't really clear. The Sarmatii are not that powerful. The Chatti look better, which is number 4, which I think did not come out at all. So there was some hope for the Chatti, I guess. Then with the Romans, we have a different ordering here. Green got first pick, and they didn't like what they got. I think they handed off to yellow 2, which is Nerva, who goes early. But the thing is, nobody has a lot of points right now. Actually, yellow's kind of happy going early because they have a fairly strong presence on the board and will be able to score some points at least for their Romans. But there's no victory point bonus for Nerva. He's pretty crappy, being what was he? One of the I don't know. Our next pick there was red, who got one he didn't like as well. He got number 5, who's Antonius Pius, who gives victory points per area. Now, that's not a bad bonus, but what he figured is, look, somebody already passed a bad one away. There's probably pretty good ones left. I'm going to get something decent. So I'll pass that to blue, who isn't going to get much off of it. He's only got 1 province. He might expand a little, but, you know, it's not going to really help too much. And that meant blue actually got the next pick, and he got Hadrian, which of course is awesome. Gives +1 legion and victory points per province and wins ties. And that went to red, even though red screwed him over. Red is clearly in last place on the board. Like I said, you know, you don't really ask, hey, how many cards do you have, or what's your position, or whatever. And red probably is going to be spending some points to get Hadrian to recover the empire as much as he can. And then our last pick was yellow got a pick. Now yellow's already got the lousy Nerva. He ended up with 6, which is Varus Armeniacus. Well, it's not bad, but it goes so late in the turn. That's not a terrible thing for green, though. Green's got some territories, but green may have gotten stuck with that earlier. Right. No, green's the guy who passed early on. So he was hoping to get a good one and did not get a great one, but he got an okay one. He was considering Nerva because he's not in a bad position to start with, but hey, who knows, you know, he could have gotten Domitian or Trajan here, neither of whom came out. So that's where we are, and now we start with the looking for the first barbarian, which is going to be the Sarmatians. And they ended up somewhere. Someone got them. Green got them. Now the Sarmatians are already in Red's hands, but essentially they lose them for this, which is kind of cool because Red had taken the two. They take the Asian Sarmatians to move them out of there and start a new barbarian force. Now they were kind of hoping the regular Sarmatians didn't come in. What is two? Two is the Alani, who will start from here. He was kind of hoping he'd still have these, but in some ways maybe he's better off not, because his pathway through Sarmatia is more appealing this way. Anyway, we'll get started. Going first with those Sarmatians was huge. It didn't really do much for me in terms of what I gained. I marched into Dacia, which actually I didn't need to do because I already was in Lycia here. So I already had 1 point in the Greek states, and I had a couple other places maybe where I wasn't getting full, but I had control over so many areas. Boom, boom. I'm in here, control here, I'm in here, just so many different points and a couple of city points. I end up at 49 with my barbarians. We're not quite halfway through the game and we're already coming close to that 100-point limit. I may have to subtract a pile of points off everyone, or else use some kind of extra marker. Either one works. It's not like you need to deal with a proportional value here. And that puts us then, there was no Domitian, so that puts us to Nerva, which means he's going to be able to score whatever Romans he has, which is pretty cool because he actually has a fair holding there. And he's got this as well. See if he has a card that helps him, but Nerva's not really terribly valuable. The thing is, though, I could get into Rome. But if I do, somebody's going to knock me out because I'm the leading player. So maybe the best thing I can do is kind of fortify my position. Actually, I have something far more potent. I have a disaster card. Now, these generally aren't that tremendous, but I can throw myself in and try to destroy blue here. Now, that knocks blue out. That's not that big a deal in and of themselves. But because blue is able to spend victory points to restart, essentially. But owning Baetica looks very valuable to me. Now what this does is each unit, city, and fortress in there, I get to roll a die for. And on a 5 or less, whatever it is destroyed. I mean, it just wrecks it all. So the 2 whites will be the 2 units there. We'll roll them. They're both gone. And that means blue has to restart. I wonder who blue has. Blue has Antoninus. And now red for the city, white for the fortress, I guess. And we got rid of both of them too. The city's not looted, it's actually destroyed. Which is a little problematic because I have my one city I can have unless I can expand somewhere. I could expand into Syria. That looks valuable. I could actually launch some attacks, take Syria and Assyria, and force another player off the map temporarily for waiting so damn long. Might be worthwhile. Might be worth the points. I'd need 3 legions to do that. And at this point, though, I think legions cost 3 points each, which makes them much, much more painful to build. Nope, still 2 each because it's turn 3. Turn 4 is where it goes up. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm not sure if I'm taking any fortresses, though. Taking myself a little fortress over here in Hispania. Complete dominance. Ended up getting my Roman victory points up to 46. And that includes wiping this out. So Nerva, instead of, pursuing Rome and trying to rebuild Rome itself, watches a disaster happen here and then takes on promulgating civil wars and really wipes 2 players off the map for now. They can come back. They still have victory points. So if you can completely eliminate someone's Roman capability, that's huge. But that's going to be pretty hard, I think. It might be a worthwhile starting strategy. If you see somebody on the board ahead of you launch an attack, try to knock them out. When they have very few victory points, they may not be able to form themselves as a Roman faction again. Anyway, after Nerva, we go back to the second, which is going to be the Alani, who come in over here. We got to see if they want to do something. The Alani slice through the Sarmatians. They've retreated back to here after a couple of rounds. Tried to make their way down to Armenia, did not. Their card was for Lusitania, which allows them to score here. They got some points, but nowhere near what other people are pulling in here. So they're up to 33 at this point, which isn't terribly valuable. And that puts us on the next emperor, who would be Trajan if he existed, but I don't think he does. I think Hadrian is our next emperor, which means he gets to go again. Now he's off board, which means we have to look up how he can get back in. We got 2 Romans who've been defeated. Any Roman... Okay. So it's according to priorities. Any Roman province with only a fort or a fortress in it. How do you define what a Roman province is? That's kind of a problem here. Because that's not clearly defined. For example, if it doesn't have a city, it's probably Roman if it has a fort or a fortress. But I have to go for one of those first. Is there anywhere where there's only a fort or a fortress? I don't think there is. And I think it's possible for there to be non-Roman provinces there. A vacant province adjacent to a Roman-controlled province. Okay. Well, I don't think there are any vacant provinces either. I think everything's kind of been filled up. Okay, so now we go to the next step. A Roman-controlled province in which I can attack. And this is the interesting piece, is where would I want to hit a Roman? Where would I want to launch my attacks out of? Ideally, yeah, I'm allowed to recruit legions to any amount. So ideally, where would I want to come launch myself out of? Someplace like Narbonensis gets us near Rome, but we can make our way back up here using naval action. Hispania is very valuable right now, though. That's one of the problems. Okay, I'm going to have to look at my cards and see what I can do here, because I'm going to probably be buying a whole bunch of units with Hadrian coming in. Hadrian's coming in big. He gets a free legion. He bought the rest, getting him down to $6. He would like to hit blue, but blue's off board. So we're going to hit yellow. Now, we're using Wrath of God, which says we roll 3 dice when attacking. If we lose a combat, we go down to 2 dice, but we win all tied combats. And against fortresses, a tie means both sides roll again, just specifying that. And I keep winning tied combats until a second combat. This is kind of my biggest shot of the game that I'm using up here. And I'm going to do this against Narbonensis to begin with. Hadrian also gives me what? +1 victory point per province. Oh, I already won ties. Huh. I could add 1 to the die roll. That sounds better. Alright. So we'll just add 1 to the die roll instead. And and I'll go into Narbonesis. And I only get 2 dice against 1. And we'll come back after they're done. They're at +1. I'm at +1. I win ties. I did not win that. There's no penalty for losing a battle, though. So I keep going. Oh, this looks terrible. This is my big shot for the game. Okay, we're both at +1. I win ties. That means I defeated this, and now I take the fort. And now I'll track the rest of their expansion after this. It went fine until I took enough of Italy to have dominance and decided to go for dominance in Hispania as well. And then this fortress just stopped me, killed a couple of units. I was down to only 1 unit left. Can't get dominance anymore. Went into Greece and grabbed a space there. I still ended up getting a decent amount of points with the advantages and everything, getting myself back up to 26. Yeah, I know, but still, it does provide me with being somewhat in the running, I guess. I don't know. I still feel pretty bad off, and I shot my biggest firepower there. I got a good leader. I had spent a lot of money, but the money I got back in terms of victory points. But I also spent an important card with a weapon card and did not get all that much off of it. Although if I get left alone in Rome, I can rebuild it at some point, maybe. As of right now, I've got 1 city space, and that's it. And I've got a city. It just happens to be a looted one, which isn't worth it. It is worth something. Looted cities are still worth points to the Romans. So I get a couple of points, I think. Yeah, that I didn't count in. So I'm a little better off. So green took the Mauritanians away from red and ended up launching an attack into Baetica, but not until before they played the People's Revive and reinforced their Parthians here to make them a more powerful force and a more constant source of points. Not a lot of green locations. Getting into Baetica was vital for the 4 points for Hispania, but they also have 4 points here in Dalmatia, so they scored pretty well with their barbarians, putting them in the top rank of at least, what people are scoring off of one of their 2 sides. They're still pretty far down on their Romans, but they haven't gotten their action yet, so they may end up surpassing some others. Now, that put me the 3rd here. That means I go to the next one here. Now, we had Hadrian, which means we should be on token 5, Antonius Pius, over here, who's blue. Blue's going to have to come on the board the way red did. I'm not sure how much he wants to spend big, but he does get a victory point for every area he has, so that's not a bad one to score, to try to gain some ground off of. I don't think there are any empty areas, empty forts available, or empty areas next to Roman territory. So I don't really see any easy option, which means he can enter wherever the hell he likes, which is kind of within Roman territory, which is kind of potent. He's probably going to come in on yellow as well, although he may come in down here to wipe out those yellows. The thing is, Hispania is so valuable that making the attack there is worth almost as much as making the attack in Rome. Blue was unable to score as many points as they spent. They basically bought all their armies, launched an attack in Aquitania using a surprise attack card, which allowed them to ignore the fortress there so that they could take it easily. They had other opportunities, but they didn't want to spend as big. They ended up taking all of Gaul, all of Hispania, and Narbonese Gaul, which isn't really part of Hispania, but couldn't make the attack go into Rhaetia or expand anywhere else. They ended up losing a couple of points, I think, 1 or 2. Yeah. But at 31, they're still not too far behind. They're ahead of red in terms of the restart button, right? and haven't spent as much. And to their credit, they've got this huge barbarian point-wise that they've gathered here. So this goes here, and now, let's see, that was the Maracia. They got knocked out of here. We should be looking to see if somebody has 4 or 5. 3 was here. Somebody's got to have one of them. Somebody's got both of them. 4, the chatty, have not gone yet. And I should have a marker for these because these guys are all on the board. But the chatty are over here. They were yellow, and now they're going to become red. And we'll see what I can do with them. Screwed up. 2 barbarian points back. These come back to Egypt. This slides back here. There's a picked here. What happened was these multiple counters confused me. The cards from the original game, the History of the World, worked fine. They had a nation on them each. Here with these counters, it's hard to tell. So I saw this 4 and thought that was the 4 for the barbarians or whatever, even though I should have been able to tell the difference. Especially since I noticed that their barbarians were fairly high. And when I noticed the Alani here, I remembered kind of playing them, but it didn't really stick in my head very well. So these were whose? Shit. That's the hard part. I took them away from someone. I didn't take them away from blue. I think I took them away from green. I think they were the chatty. You can look back on the video. I'm sure I showed it there. That means only 5 is here. The chatty were not active, and they should be in here, yeah. Which means the Celts are the next active one instead of the chatty, and that's here. And I gotta see what the hell they can do with them. This is yellow. Who I'm pretty sure did not have the chatty last time, but I can't tell you who they had. It's this single counter thing is, and the number counters is not the easiest way to represent these things in terms of making the game easy to remember whose stuff is what. If you screw up, it becomes harder. I'm pretty sure the Pannonians were not my play. With yellow, I'm not sure who the hell was. So maybe they were the chatty. Maybe they have them. Fucked if I know. They have a good deal of points. These are kingdoms. Yeah, I think they must have had the chatty, not the green. I don't know. Okay. Which means that they're going to score some reasonable points here, which they already had. But I can't think of who else they could have been, unless it got wiped out. Let's see, last turn, Gargamentes. Where were Gargamentes? Gargamentes are down here, they're blue. That's not what I had. Marcomanni, well, that's a possibility. Oh, great, I lost track of who owns the Marcomanni. Fuck. Shit. I got no clue. Who swept down and knocked people out? I don't know. So, I don't know if the chatty... I think the Marcomanni may have been the yellow and the chatty are green. I don't know. Because whoever yellow was, they gained a lot of points last time. But somebody got wiped out here, and it's probably the... I remembered taking a green counter from there, I think, but I don't want to look back. I don't feel like that's... I mean, you normally wouldn't have a video record. So, I guess I will be doing, what is it, the Celts here, and bringing them in and seeing what I can score with them. And I don't know what kind of card I've got in mind. And the Celts did not do terribly well here. They drove their way up here. I remember to put a counter down for them. Point-wise, I did okay because I brought the Numidians in. And I guess that's it. So I'm actually very close to the lead with both of these, although I'll be the second to last barbarian pick instead of the last. But yellow is clearly doing very well, and I'm sure I didn't score these for anyone. So whoever's they were, they ended up in the right place, I think. And I'm pretty sure this was in the right place as well. We have one more left to go, though. We have Varus Arminiacus, who is going to be 6. And that's over here. That's green. Green still has an existence, so he can grow that up a little bit. Maybe build fortifications or whatever. There's not... Yeah, the idea of attacking Rome without the city there seems a little weak. Although there are, it is worth as much as any other city when it's looted. So it might be worthwhile. We'll see what we go with. He's got Wins Ties, a military ability. Could help that we finish up that turn in the video with a Siegecraft card, which allows me to ignore fortifications, with which I marched into Egypt, Mesopotamia, Cilicia. I made an attempt on Thracia. Main reason, grab things with forts. Once the fort is all that's there, I'm good. I own it. Because I'm Romans. Even if it's not a Roman fort to begin with, that's fine. And, wow, loot. Picked up a bunch of money off of those. That's a really powerful thing, is if cities are not looted and are in non-Roman hands, they're really worth grabbing. I still get a victory point each at the end of the turn, plus I get at least a die roll, and in Egypt's case a die roll +2. So that's tremendously valuable. Getting Thracia would be important because next turn is where Constantinople would form, but there are no Romans there, so it really isn't going to happen until that happens. I think that's the end of the line here. We had some nations destroyed, some miners and stuff like Egypt, the Cilicians. And so that's going to help cut back on some of the points here. And green got themselves into a position that's not too bad. They bought all their units. Remember, though, units get expensive next turn, and that's going to be kind of one of the problems. Obviously, I think I screwed up by not looting some of these cities earlier in the game. They're well worth taking out. If something's in a kingdom's hands, you want it, you want to kill it, and you want to take that money because you get a die roll worth of money off of it. All right, let's send this one up.